Hi everyone, we're in week 24. We're halfway through June and June is halfway through the year. So even though we're not on week 26, we are using the prompt half this week. Now I've thought long and hard about this one and I've come up with a design that I hope you're going to enjoy. We're going to be looking at the insides of vegetables this week, so I hope you're up for that, and we're going to return to reverse applique, which we haven't looked at for quite a long time. If you want to find out more about reverse applique, you can go back to our video back in week 5 where we made this, and I'll put a link in the card above to take you straight there. You'll need some sharp scissors that are sharp to the point. Embroidery scissors are ideal, but if you don't have them, then nail scissors would work really well too. A seam ripper also comes in very handy. So in terms of fabrics, you'll need your piece of felt with your border marked, a selection of fabrics, a selection of threads, and I'm going to throw in some beads as well. So if you've got some beads handy, they will be useful too. So grab all your bits and pieces and let's get stitching. So this week's prompt posed quite a lot of challenges for me. Because we'd done slice last month, I didn't really want to do anything too similar. So I spent quite a long time thinking about ways we could interpret the word half without repeating ourselves. And my first idea was really simple. I thought we could just cut our panel in half and put a fabric on it, and then cut the remaining half in half, and then cut that half in half again, just reduce our half by half every time, and then we could put some of our decorative lines along the joins. And I quite like the way it would look like it was spiralling down, but I didn't really think it was that interesting in interpretation. So my next idea was something similar but based around circles, and I thought we could layer up some concentric circles of fabric and do that on one side, and then on the other side we could do lines of decorative stitching. And then I thought perhaps mixing the two sides up and having fabric on one half and stitching on the other half, and then reversing it layer by layer. And I quite liked almost like a halfway mark would form, even though we hadn't drawn a line. But again, I didn't think it was particularly exciting. And I kept thinking about a piece of art that I did when I was at school that was based around halves of vegetables. And when you cut a pepper in half, you get lots of interesting layers and striations and colours. And I thought that might make quite an interesting design. And I was also thinking about techniques that we haven't used for a while. And we haven't done any reverse applique for ages, and I thought this design would really lend itself to some reverse applique. And I thought the seeds that you get around the core would look quite good in beads perhaps, and so this is the idea that I decided to go with in the end. So I'm going to be working on this dark green felt. It's one of our Cooning felts and it's in our poinsettia garland kit. It's a lovely evergreen colour and it's one of my favourites. So that's what I'm working on. The first thing I need to do is make my fabric sandwich. So I've got all sorts here. I'm going to start with some lame because I just love it so much, that shiny green. And I'm just going to cut a piece that roughly fits. So I don't have to be too precise on this because we will trim it back. I just want a piece that will sit behind the felt. So that's the lame, and now I need to find some other fabrics. So I've got a nice piece of lime green. It's a bit crumpled but it doesn't matter too much, and I've got a polka dot here. I want some patterns as well. I've got a floral there, and I'm looking for about 5 layers. I think that's 4. Yeah, so I need another one. I've got this Japanese yarn dye fabric. I cut a hole in it last week for our turtle, but it's just about big enough. So that can sit behind, that just gives a different pattern and a slightly different texture as well. So I just need to line all these up now. and one of my subscribers helpfully reminded me about wonder clips, and I actually have some sitting in front of me the whole time, but I just forget to use them. These are really great for bulky fabrics because they work like pegs and they just hold your layers of fabric together without puckering or distorting your fabric. And they're also good for fabrics that will mark if you put pins in them, so things like leather or metallic fabrics that you want to avoid puncturing if at all possible. So I've just put a little lump in there, I'll just smooth it out. But they just hold your fabrics together, and they're a great alternative to pins when you're working with felt because of the amount of bulk. And obviously I'm adding layers to this one as well, so these are really going to help me. I've got a single strand of embroidery thread and I'm just going to tack around the edge so that all those layers of fabric are held together while I'm working with them. You don't have to be too fussy because we are going to remove these. I've got my sandwich made, I've got my layers of fabric, and this smaller piece isn't always caught in, but I'm not too worried because it's caught in enough, and we're going to add some more stitching. So what I've done is cut out my pepper shape from my design, and I'm just going to draw around it. What I'm going to do is reduce this template to get all my shapes. This is my white heat erase pen. I hope you can see that I've got the outline of my pepper there, and so what I'm going to do is just cut away that first layer. And then I'm going to lay the pattern back on and draw around it again. And then I'm going to cut away again. Now this one's slightly trickier because I'm reducing it down and there's not anything joining these two lobes of the pepper together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of do two in one. I've cut around the outside and then I'm cutting down to the line of the core of the pepper first of all. And then I'm going to go all the way up to the bottom of the core. Go along a little way and come back down on the inside edge of that lobe, like that. That allows me to get the two lobes but also get the positioning for the core as well. I'm just laying that on and drawing around it again, and then I'm just going to cut the core out and know where it belongs because that dip in the middle lines up with the dip in the last piece that I did, and so I can just draw around the outside edges, and then I can just sketch in the line for the lobe which I never cut out. I'm hoping you can see that. If not, be reassured I can see it fairly well. So what I need to do now is do my stitching, and I want to think all the time about how I'm going to cut it out. And so this outer layer here is actually very thin, and if I'm not careful it's going to be impossible to cut away the felt on that section. So what I'm going to do is stitch just outside the line rather than inside it. So I'm going to do a back stitch all the way around that outer shape. Really simple back stitch, and I've just got one strand of thread. You might find it easier to get the shape if, rather than just sneaking the needle through, if you go all the way through and then all the way back up again, because there are so many layers. You might find it easier to do each stitch in 2 motions. It takes a little bit longer, but you will get a better finish. Got little shreds of lame all over the place. It does fray very badly, but this technique should keep it all in one place. So you might be able to just see there my stitching all the way around. So I'm not going to make you sit through me stitching this. I'm going to literally just back stitch all the way around, and then I'll come back and talk about what happens next. Okay, so I hope you can see that I've back stitched around all of the lines that I drew. If I bring it up, you should be able to see there that I've outlined everything with back stitch. It's gone all the way through to the back, so all of those fabrics are secure. So now we get to do the fun bit, and I've got a seam ripper here just to help me be precise. So let's start with a safe bit. This bit is quite large. So what I'm going to do is make a little hole, and then I'm going to get my embroidery scissors in because they're sharp to the tip, and you really do need a pair of scissors that's sharp right up to the very tip for this. And I'm just going to cut around inside my stitching. We did go through reverse applique in a lot of detail in our applique session back in week 5. I'll put a link at the top of the screen so that you can go and find that video if you want a more detailed explanation, but we are covering it fairly thoroughly here. So what you should be able to see there is that I've revealed the lame underneath, but I don't want lame for the stalk, so I'm going to go through another layer. So I'm just going to make a hole in that lame, and I'm going to cut that away as well, and that reveals the layer beneath, which was the lime green. But I want to go further still, so I'm going to go through that lime green again, starting off with my seam ripper. And that takes me down to the floral, and actually what I want is this background fabric, so I'm just going to keep going. I think I've got 2 more layers, and that takes us down to that Japanese yarn dye fabric that's right at the back. So that's my stalk. Now I'm going to do the core. I want to have in the same fabric, so I'm just going to repeat that process. And the key is to go close enough to your stitching that you get the whole shape, but not so close that you risk cutting your stitches. So I've done all my cutting away, and there's quite a lot of lame fibres left all over the place, so I've just got a bit of tape, and I'm just going to go over it with tape just to try and pick up those bits of lame so that it looks less ragged. So now I'm going to take out these tacking stitches that we put in at the beginning to hold all the layers together. and I'm just going to trim away some of this excess fabric around the back because it is just creating quite a lot of bulk and making the edge look raggedy. So I'm just going to cut. I've got my scissors in between the felt and the fabric sandwich. Alarm won't go. Just doesn't want to leave. There we go. So there's my pepper. I'm still dealing with shiny fibres everywhere. I've put my border back in and I've just marked a line 3 centimetres up from the bottom, and I thought it would be nice to fill the remaining space with some decorative stitching in different shades of green. So let's start with some herringbone stitch. I'm just going to work the verticals. These stitches are all in our decorative lines video, which is our stitches of the month, and I'll put a link to the video at the top of the screen there. I've just got a single strand of embroidery thread here, and I'm just keeping this quite sketchy. I'm not going to worry too much about it looking immaculate because the whole thing is quite sketchy. I'm going to do some Cretan stitch. This is the one where we make a little vertical stitch and catch the working thread. And a bit of chevron stitch. So you get the idea what I'm doing. I'm just going to put in the rest of these lines and then we'll come back and add some finishing touches. I've added in some decorative stitching around the back and on the bottom half, and the last thing I want to do is add some beads to imitate the seeds. I've got these little seed beads here and I think they'll work quite well. So I wanted this to be completely green again, rather than adding in other colours. So I'm just going to add these little, I think they're glass with a green sort of lining through the hole, and I don't want them to be too regular, so every now and again I'm going to put an extra one poking out. Okay, so there's our finished upper half. I've got some shine in there, which doesn't pick up particularly well on the camera, but hopefully it'll show up better in the photos. I've added some seeds to the core of my pepper and some decorative stitching in the background. So that's what I've done for half. Looking forward to seeing what you create. Don't forget to share your art at #FSHWingingIt, and if you want to see all of these pieces together, add #FSHWingingIt24. If you want to go back and see last week's video, I will add it down here, and I'll put a video that's best for you up here. Don't forget to give it a like if you've enjoyed the process, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!